right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Forum. The brisk November day here in the Czech Republic. Tomorrow, we're going to be celebrating St. Martin's Day, which is the traditional celebration for the beginning of winter. So, you traditionally cook a goose and have a little bit of wine and some dumplings, things like that with it. I think sauerkraut as well. Traditional meal, but it's the official start of the cold season tomorrow in the Czech Republic, and in the inverse of that, in springtime on the 30th of April, there's always the countrywide witch burning ceremonies. No actual witches are harmed, but there's like big bonfires all over the country and lots of celebrating and boozing and things like that. So wherever you are, I hope you are well. I hope you are hanging in there. It's getting darker. It's getting colder. If you're in the USA, it has been a whale of a week for you as well. I'm going to touch more on those subjects and things like that, how that relates to what we offer, what we are doing as far as getting certified to be an international teacher or, planning to move abroad. That will be the topic next week. I've already decided that we're going to talk about the moving abroad, moving to another country experience very intimately next week. And I believe next week also I will be recording another podcast with Mr. David Cantu as well. So another American who has moved abroad, not necessarily because either of us are trying to get away from something, but, we were focused more on what was in front of us than what was behind us, because I have gotten a lot of messages from all of my different agencies and businesses, from my relocation agency to my staffing agency to TEFL Pros, of course. People are asking, hey, for one reason or another, they're saying, hey, I'm thinking about possibly relocating. And, we're, of course, glad to help. We're always here to talk to you. If you would like to go to our webpage, you could actually book a free call with myself on the Calendly page. So just scroll down until you find it, and we can book a time to talk, because, just moving because of an event or a occurrence, things like that, I don't think gives itself to the discipline that should go into potentially relocating to a new culture, especially if you are talking about a career change, a culture change, a location change, a language change. All of these things are spinning plates that need to be addressed accordingly. So, of course, if anyone is having these thoughts, we would love to talk to you. We'd love to, possibly create an environment where it's a little bit more well thought out. And of course, having been through relocating myself many years ago and all of the challenges that went with that, I will be sharing much more, a lot more of an intimate description of that experience at the next Friday Forum. So I hope to see you there. And to all of you who are listening to this, outside of course, the live feed, all of you guys who are just, maybe watching this on YouTube or watching this on the, in the Teacher's Garden page on the TEFL Pros site. It's good to have you here. And of course, please feel free to comment, interact, shoot me a message as well with any questions or sharing your experiences, things like that. So that's going to be that until we talk next week. So in the meantime, though, I did have a plan this week. Before Election Day, I was going to talk about lesson planning because it was brought to my attention time and time again over the years that lesson planning seems to be the one thing that we all dislike the most. Because maybe when we're in the classroom, we enjoy the rush of it, being able to speak, being able to kind of give your theater to the students, things like that. However, sitting at home, on the couch or at a table and actually putting together a lesson can be a little daunting. It can be sometimes overwhelming, especially if you haven't done it before. So I figure from the experience of myself as a teacher, from the experience of helping other teachers, I figure I can share some thoughts, some methodologies, things like that. Of course, this is not the only way to lesson plan. Everyone has their own style. It's just like preparing to play a sport or preparing for, some people want to stretch, some people like to relax. Everyone has their own style, but I figure this can at least give us a place to start. All right. So when you have a lesson, of course, you have to take all the parameters into account. All right. How long is the lesson? Cool. Right? Is it 45 minutes? Is it 60 minutes? Is it 90 minutes? There have been some instances where there have been 3-hour lessons in some places, which seems like a little bit of a marathon, but there's some pretty good paying lessons if you can keep it going for 3 hours. And of course, there's breaks and stuff. So don't think you have to stand and present something for 3 hours. So how long is it? Cool. That's part one. Part two, who are you giving the lesson to? All right. Are you giving your lesson to kids? Are you giving your lesson to teens? Are you giving your lessons to adults? Are you giving your lessons to someone in a specific field, someone who has a specialty, some doctors, lawyers, accountants? Is there some sort of audience that you need to be prepared for? That's also something you need to take into account because, of course, certain things that work with kids and teenagers may fall on deaf ears with adults. That has happened to me on several occasions because, of course, I was a high school teacher for a real long time, but I also, moonlit as an English conversation teacher to adults. So, of course, I thought maybe I could pull some stuff from the high school category and give it to the adults. They thought it was a load of shit. So, you have to modify. You have to figure out what's best for your crowd, what's best for your audience, all right? So now you know how long you're teaching for, you know who you're teaching to. Now you have to figure out what is the goal of the lesson. By the time this lesson is done, what do you want to have accomplished in that time? Do you want to have completed a word bank? Do you want to have completed a grammar rule? Do you want to be able to get them to speak, to read? What type of lesson are we doing? Is it a listening? Is it a reading? Is it grammar? What are we trying to get out of it? All right. So if you have that, now you know what you're trying to get out of it. So then you can work yourself backwards. All right. You have put your pillars in place. You know the arena that you function in now. Alrighty. So now we know who we're teaching. We know how long we're teaching them for. We know what we're trying to get out of it. Next question. What are my resources? All right. Is this an office space where you have just a billboard? Not billboard, but one of those dry erase boards? Do you have a TV? Do you have a screen that connects to the internet? Do you have a projector? Do you have just books? Do you have worksheets? What do you have to make this work? All right. Because of course, every classroom is different. I've been in classrooms in the same school that have been different, where if I go to one room, I could have a touch screen board. I can have, an interactive media, things like that. I go into another classroom and I have a chalkboard and I have chalk. And then after a day working there, I come home looking like a drug lord. I look like Scarface at the end of the movie where he's just covered in white powder. So, what do you have? So take stock in what you have, what you need to bring, what's being provided, things like that, right? Because those are your tools. Those are your weapons to get the point across. Of course, if you have a younger crowd, they are addicted to the screen. They are addicted to the screen. And you can utilize that to kind of garnish their attention. If you try to hammer a point home, maybe add something visual to it. Maybe add something audio to it, some music, some video, things like that. If you have adults, they tend to gear more towards individual conversation. They want to be addressed. They want to be spoken to, things like that. So you have to assess what you have and how it applies to that area. And of course, it comes with time. It's going to come with time. Your lesson planning will get better and better and better as time goes on. When I first took my TEFL course back in 2013, I had a classmate, and I kid you not, it would take her 4 hours to lesson plan. To plan one 60-minute lesson, it took her 4 hours. And this is where the money comes into play. Because, 4 hours, you did it, you got a lesson. However, you are being paid the same amount for that lesson, and that includes your lesson plan. Always take that into consideration. Because so now, if she's getting paid $20 for this 60-minute lesson, and she spent 4 hours planning it and 60 minutes teaching it, then she got paid $4 an hour. And that's not a whole lot. So take that into consideration. And of course, the time will shorten. That was her in the beginning. That was us getting started. Generally speaking, now after 10 plus years of doing this, I can probably bang out a 90-minute lesson in less than 10 minutes. That's just kind of how I've done it over the years. But also keep in mind, I probably haven't lesson planned in the better part of several years now, because I lesson planned, and I kept the ones I liked, and I discarded the ones I didn't like, or the ones that didn't work, the ones that didn't work out with the students. And, you'll figure that out. You try, and trial and error. Sometimes they take to it. Sometimes they absolutely do not. But you have to kind of work with what you're given, whether there's a curriculum given to you by the school, whether there's a workbook you have to teach out of, or whether you're just freestyling, you're just putting something together. Or if you are teaching maybe not one lesson, but maybe this is part of a unit, something that is a little bit more, long-term involved, and you just kind of take it one chunk at a time. So how are you going to do it? How do you lesson plan? What do you do with your lessons? And once you have the lesson and it works out, hang on to that. It's like a comedian with a joke that just lands. You stash it, because then you start developing your courses. It goes from individual lessons to whole courses. You can pull them out, get paid for it, teach them. You'll teach them confidently because you already know the lines, you know the phrases, you know the worksheets, you know the bounce, the ebb and flow of the lesson. So you try it, you practice it, you perfect it, you keep it. That's the idea of being an effective lesson planner. And after the first year or two of being a TEFL instructor, you should have a pretty good stash of lessons, both ones that work and ones that don't work. So maybe if you keep them somewhere, I know I use the Google Drive. Even if it's nothing that's physical, I just kind of keep a little outline of it. That way, if I need to refresh it, when I was teaching high school, I would do a unit, and after that unit, that was it for that unit for the year. It was done. It was out. So I would have to kind of revisit it every year, maybe modify it, things like that. I would use references that were outdated, things like that. I made a joke about Five Nights at Freddy's, and of course that it as a computer game that was very popular maybe 10 years ago. But nowadays, it's, not too many teenagers are in the know of that particular game. So you have to make sure that your subject matter stays relevant, stuff like that. So that's kind of the direction you want and the mentality you want to have going into lesson planning. All right. So who am I teaching to? How long? What are my tools? What am I trying to accomplish? You do that stuff, and now you assemble. All right. How is your lesson going to begin? What are you starting with? A lot of different philosophies, of course, like to have some sort of opening activity, opening thing where you want to, of course, engage the student, whether it be just kind of an open dialogue. If with adults, you can kind of maybe start with a question, start with a concept, kind of get them talking about it, get them feeling it. Of course, there's a term that's called guided discovery, where you don't actually tell them what the lesson is. And it can be something as deep as, like I said, if they're good at conversation, you can kind of string them along and say, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? Leading them to kind of just be thinking about it while they're talking until you introduce the subject matter. Or, with little kids, you can play a game of hangman with the topic. Simple, but effective. And it gets them moving, gets them thinking, gets them engaged in the topic. Because if they're not engaged, you might as well be teaching English to a pile of stuffed animals. They'll respond just as much. All right, so we did our opener, got into it. So now we're into our subject matter. What now? This is where you can maybe choose to do an activity based on what the subject matter is. We can elicit the topic by kind of bringing it out from them. So maybe a worksheet, or watching a video, commenting on it. We can talk about how they're going to use this topic and when they would use this topic, especially with grammar. I've always found with grammar lessons, even if it's ridiculous, we want to showcase where in life this grammar topic would be used. An example of this one from my early teaching days. This was from, I think, the 2013-2014 school year at the high school I was teaching at in downtown Prague. We were talking about noun clauses, which is essentially a question in the form of a sentence. So, for example, if I would go up to my wife and say, "Sweetheart, is it raining outside?" The noun clause of that would be, David wants to know if it's raining outside. So, question, statement. And I sat there, scratched the top of my head. I said, where the hell would anyone use this? Just as reported speech. Wayne, where would this be used? And for whatever reason, I don't know if I just watched like Goodfellas or The Godfather or something like that the night before, I thought of like mobster interrogation scenes where the help, kind of beat on the captor, and they just say, my boss wants to know, who do you work for? My boss wants to know where is the money stashed? And to me, that just made perfect sense to teach to high school kids. Was it, the most genius moment ever? Absolutely not. But we can run with it. We can make that fun. So I started the lesson. I elicited the topic. I got them using it. I taught the rules about how you take one and transform it into the other. This was to a class of maybe, I would say, 15 students. 15 students were there. And one student in there, his name is Iggy. And Iggy, if you're listening to this, man, shout outs. All right. I haven't forgotten you, man. I hope you're doing wonderful things. Iggy, he would always come into class late and have this big shit-eating grin on his mouth. He would, he was too cool for school. And, but he also just absolutely loved attention. He loved attention. So I figured, you know what, this is our moment. Let's give it to the guy. So I said, hey, Iggy, you showed up late, He says this, well, sorry, Mr. Gray, like all sarcastic like that. I said, it's cool, man, it's cool. Hey, I want you to sit on this chair up in the front of the class. He comes up, he sits down. Whole class staring at him exactly how he wants it. I go to another young lady. I comment on her scarf, tell her it's beautiful, ask to borrow it. I take the scarf, and I more or less fasten this young man to a chair with it. It's okay in the Czech Republic. No one won't jail for that. Either way, he was loving it, and I said, all right, I put the students in pairs, and I said, you guys are now the mafia boss and the henchman. And the boss needs to come up with interrogation questions for our captive who is fastened to this chair in the front of class. And then the other person has to use the now clause to showcase the use of that sentence. And they did just that. And it was just master theater because suddenly everyone became gangsters. Everyone became, mafioso. And, they were being badasses. Where are the drugs hidden? Who do you work for? Where's the body at? Things like that. My boss wants to know where the body's at. And they were, kind of pushing and poking at him. And he was loving it. He was giving them sneery responses, things like that. And it was great all around. It elicited the topic. It got them active. Of course, each group had to approach our captive at the front of the room. So it got them out of their chairs. It got them moving. That's always a big thing. If you can get people out of their chairs and moving, especially with high school kids, and want to, you're on fire. You're getting that reaction out of them. So we do that. We got the topic now, all right? So then we've elicited the topic. They have used it. We taught it to them. Now we have to reinforce it, all right? And that comes in the form of some sort of post activity, whether it is, watching a video and, actively watching. So maybe filling out a worksheet while they watch the video, taking a small quiz, anything to that nature, which helps reinforce the topic. So at that point in time, we're probably about 30 minutes into, let's say if it was high school, that was about 45 minutes. Where you listen to the topic, that takes about maybe 5-10 minutes. You set up your activity, which takes a couple minutes. You then engage the students, have them prepare the activity, which takes about 10 minutes. You then have them go through the activity, which takes 10-15 minutes. And then you reinforce it, which is another 10. So you're coming right towards the end of class, things like that. And at that school, if we got through it and we got through the book work, I gave them their homework assignment. Of course, made sure that it was explained. There was board work behind me on the whiteboard. I think that classroom had a dry erase whiteboard. Hallelujah. Then we got to the end of class. And at the end of class, you can either hammer it home with maybe one last quick activity. Sometimes with that class, they all like to dance. So I would say, hey, if we do this, we're going to do a dance song. And, they all submit a song and we pick one out. And then we all just kind of sashay away. That's kind of how we end the class. So that lesson, planning that, I think I planned that lesson maybe 10 minutes before I walked into the classroom. I wouldn't recommend doing that early on, but it's something that works. Sorry, I'm getting a little parched today. So now that is an example of a class that, and like I said, that is by no means masterpiece theater. That was not me at the height of my game. That was me probably 3 months into being a teacher. And that's what I put together. And you'll slowly figure out activities. You'll slowly figure out games. if you want some great source material for activities that involve movement and speech, there's an old TV show. Some of you may know it. It's from the United States and the UK. It is called Whose Line Is It Anyway? And there's great activities in that game when you strip away the humor, the comedy, and the professionalism of the improv actors. Just taking the games and modifying them to a classroom, such as, you give them a scene, give them an activity, and they could only speak in the form of asking a question. And the second they don't, they're out. That's a great game. I've had my students really sink their teeth into that one. I've had students, act out scenes between famous people, things like that. Or people didn't know who they were. They had to guess who they are. And once they guessed who they were, they had to sit down. So, find your inspirations in lots of different places. It doesn't have to be just a teacher's handbook. It doesn't have to be in a teaching textbook. It can be, improv, acting, board games, hand games, drawing on the board, things like that. Know your crowd, because the more activity you put into your lesson, first off, the faster time will go. Because when you first start teaching, I knew this. I felt like this in my TEFL course. I thought 25 minutes was like the longest time known to mankind. And now when I give my seminars, which are 90 minutes a piece, I can barely fit in everything I need to get in for those seminars. So that's kind of how you get into the spirit of lesson planning. And what I'll do also, I will give you an activity that we did to help you lesson plan. This is an activity that will actually help you lesson plan quicker and also help you be able to kind of grow as a lesson planner by those, interacting with those around you. You do need multiple people for this. So either I would say maybe you can message some people in our teacher's garden if you would like to have a Zoom call between you guys and you can do this activity. Maybe one of these days, if you want me to jump in, I can set up a time where we can do some lesson planning games as well. This one was fun. It was about 5 of us from the TEFL course, and we would go to this pizza place in downtown Prague, right by our school. And we would sit around a table and bring a piece of paper, a pen, and 3 dice. Dice is plural, but 3 dice. I guess 3 individual dice that we would bring, and that's all you need. That's all you need. It's something to write on, piece of paper, and dice. You can even do it with 1. You just have to roll it multiple times. We did 3 just to make it more complete looking. So what you do is you make 3 columns. Each column has 6 options. So just number each column 1 through 6. All right. Your first column is everyone in the group picks a different topic. So however many people are there, pick topics until you get 6, however you want to dice them out. So, the weirder, the better. You could do things like music or food or solving a murder mystery, archaeology, history, the Pacific War, politics, if you're comfortable with those trends. You can talk about finances, money, travel, recreation, anything. All those topics are fair, And like I said, usually the weirder, the better. Once you get better at this game, the weirder it is, the better it is, because it really kind of puts you out of that comfort zone. So that's the first column. The second column, you're going to do 2 groups of 3. So next to number 1, put 45. Number 2, put 60. Number 3, put 90. And then for the second half, repeat it, 45, 60, 90. And then for the third column, once again, 6, you're going to do beginner, intermediate, advanced. Beginner, intermediate, advanced. All right. So now you have your rules, you have the game is set up, and you roll the die. You roll them, and those determine what lesson you are going to plan. Is it going to be a food lesson for 60 minutes for an advanced student, where that person has the ability to conversate and be able to share ideas and be able to think and present their information in English? Or are you going to have a 90-minute lesson on travel for beginners, where we're focused more just on word banks and being able to teach terms, basic grammar rules, preposition, things like that? And then you give yourself 10 minutes, maybe 15 to start, 10, 15 minutes to plan your lesson. And you plan it. And those are your parameters. And then at the end, you share it. You go around the table and say, all right, this is what I do for this. This is how I do this. This is how I do that. What I loved about that game, not just the activity, it gave you a chance to be creative and whatnot. You were able to peek inside the minds of other teachers, because we all function so differently. We all function, and we all lean, of course, we lean into our strengths. My strength is not grammar. My strength is conversation, as I'm sure you can guess by now. I'm just over here, speaking at ends. But where are your strengths? And you can see how other people use their strengths. Some people are really good with grammar, can't do conversation. It's too open for them. They like rules. They like to be able to explain rules. It gives them a very decided box to be in. Some people just can't. The math makes them nervous. They don't like being able to explain it, things like that. However, when you're at a table with 5 or 6 different people, you start hearing how different ideas are approached. And you would say, I'd never thought of doing that before. I didn't even know you could do that. That's a great angle to take. And someone may be saying the same thing about yours. And that kind of reinforcement, that kind of, self-critiquing will make you a really good lesson planner. We did that game for hours. And of course, we were in Prague, which is the beer capital of the world. So of course, a couple beverages were being poured, and the lesson planning became a little bit more lucid and got a little wild towards the end of our activity. But being able to share that amongst ourselves, we all became such better teachers and such stronger lesson planners from that. And on top of that, it kind of opened that door to allow us to share and kick ideas around, because it wasn't now taboo to think that maybe you don't have it, or this teacher's a lot better, or things like that. You now have someone that you could say, hey, I'm trying to do this with this lesson. What do you think? And you've already done this game, you've done this activity with that. And they're comfortable. Hey, maybe try this or that. Or, oh, I like that. I like that. That sounds really good. So that's an activity that we used. I'm sure there's more activities that help you lesson plan, but that was one that was very simple, very easy. If you don't have any die or dice, things like that, there are, die rolling apps and random number generators on phones and whatnot, just so you can get 3 numbers at random between 1 and 6, or between 1 and however you want to do it. And that activity, I think, me personally, that is when I really started putting some cool lesson plans together. I took my musings from other people, some other ideas that maybe I had not thought of, because of course we all are new at this at some point in time, just like everything else we do. We're new at this, and your knife is not as sharp as someone who's been doing this for 10, 15 years, or someone who's been doing it for 2, 3, 4 years. They have the battle scars. They have gone through it. So get what you can from them. Of course, if you gamify it, it just makes it a little bit more fun and makes it a little bit less medicinal, almost. That's a good way I can put it. So that's some thoughts when it comes to your lesson planning. But once you do that, once you have your lessons planned and you have the ability to plan lessons a lot quicker, your time and your lessons will be that much more valuable. People will see that your lessons not only are, going through maybe their 10th or 12th run, so they're coming off as confident, they're coming off as sure, they're coming off as practiced. And when companies see that, when schools see that, they will see what you bring to the table, and you will find better jobs. You will be paid better. You will have higher salaries, things like that. I worked in my time in Prague as a high school teacher. I worked at 4 different high schools, at some point or another. I worked at the same high school for about 10 years. And then the other 3 schools, I just kind of did a kind of secondary thing here and there because they needed an extra English instructor. But 3 of those 4 schools offered me a lifetime tenure after my first year there. And a lot of that came from the presentation and confidence behind the presentation of these lessons, because the students were enjoying it. We were going crazy. I said it as the foreign language teacher, you're supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be a little bit more whimsical. You're not supposed to be the hardcore math teacher, the sciences, the things like that. You're kind of the fresh air breath. You are the breath of fresh air that these students need in an otherwise really long day. So if you show up with games and you show up with videos and media, and you show up with activities, they're going to eat out of your hands. You're going to feel much more rewarded. They're going to come up to you and say things like, "You're my favorite teacher." They're going to come up to you and tell you how fun your classes are. They're going to ask you if they could have you as the teacher next year. I had some students ask me to play Magic the Gathering with them. They asked me to go paintballing with them, which sounded fun, but, teenagers, it would turn into a game of light up the teacher. I think all bets would be off on that one. So, that is where you start seeing the joy in your work, is with solid lessons and then solid reception to those lessons. So that's, I think, part of the importance that is a lesson planning. And I hope that we can take something from this. I hope there is some value in this talk for you guys today to kind of at least spur you to maybe not be scared of it so much, to kind of maybe try to put some more creativity into it. And also, don't worry if you're not this superstar lesson planner after your first year or two. Just like anything else, it takes practice. You're not going to get a complete, you're not going to get a 6-pack after going to the gym twice. You need to work on those muscles. You need to be able to train them. You need to be able to, morph your brain into being able to discern what works and what doesn't. Those are the important things when it comes to lesson planning. But once you harness your craft and you are able to lesson plan, whether it be very informative grammar units, or in my case, just absolutely chaotic conversation classes, that's part of your character. That is your character as a teacher. And that kind of sets the tone for how you will do things. And like I said, when I taught at these high schools, I was literally hired as a conversation teacher. It was wonderful. And then they said to me, "Dave, you're an English teacher," but it was actually a Spanish high school. It was a Spanish-speaking high school. It was in Prague, but they taught Spanish. And they said, "Dave, you're not the main character here. You are," I always call it green olives at the salad bar. You're not the reason people come here. You are an addition. So as long as they're passing their tests, as long as they are having a relatively good time, all things considered, as long as their English is improving and they are able to get, finish their state exams, then whatever you do is working and we're not going to stand in your way. And that amount of creative control, man, I just went nuts. I went nuts. I had lessons on, solving murder mysteries, lessons on how to get a job and survive a job interview, lessons on financial planning and investments, which of course teenagers would love, but I packaged it like, Mr. Rankin's going to teach you how to get rich quick. He's going to teach you how to be a millionaire. And of course, with the currency in the Czech Republic, I told them just move to a country where 1 million units of that currency are a lot easier to acquire. But I would put these units together. I taught Of Mice and Men by Steinbeck. We did The Most Dangerous Game as a short story. We did 1984. We did Animal Farm. That was it. We did Animal Farm, and we went through the thematic elements. We talked about character development. We talked about symbolism, and I just tried my best to make it as substance laden as possible. So there were jokes, there was fun, there were activities. There were students would cook for each other and bring food into class to feed people, and we had cooking shows. You had murder mysteries where the students had to make some sort of media to solve the murder mystery. Investment portfolios. I taught students how to get a mortgage in the Czech Republic, and they had to find their dream house. And of course, we did these like $1 million mansions, but we applied all of the equations on how to get a mortgage to that, and they loved it. They loved it. They loved it so much. So, like I said, if you have any ideas about lesson planning, please feel free to comment them. Shoot me an email. Let me know what some ideas you have. I would love to hear what you got and interact and let you know, what's good about it, what can be changed, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that sums it up really well. So, if you made it this far, thanks for hanging out. To those of you who are currently in the room listening, I always thank you guys for being here. You're wonderful. And like I said, good luck out there in the field. If you do have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, please feel free to reach out to me on this page. Reach out to me via my email, which is contact@tepelpros.com. And of course, you can check out our webpage at www.tepelpros.com to sign up for our course. If you are listening to this, you haven't taken our course yet, we'd love to have you in there. Got a real cool bunch working on this course as far as the course director, media guide, Whitney, Elaine, wonderful people who honestly this could not function without. So, and of course, I thank you more than anyone else. Thank you very much. Happy Friday. Hope you get to a great weekend, and we'll be seeing you next Friday at the forum. Cheers. Thank you very much.